Welcome to the Sacred Hoop. My name is Robert Hall. I've felt called to being a peacemaker and a healer. I live in Utah. I'm grateful to be here, and I'll let Cindy and Brown introduce themselves.
My name is Cindy Quinney, and I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I am from the Cree and Soto tribe, and I'm grateful to be here in the Sacred Circle with my brothers. Thank you for having me.
I'm Brown here in Utah, Polynesian background, and love to talk about genealogy and the gospel and everything like that. So glad to be here.
I love talking about genealogy too. That's great. So today
before you say that, because now you guys are all talking about genealogy, I'm just going to mention that the Gathering of Tribes is we're going to have a booth at Roots Tech coming up at the beginning of March. And we're also presenting. So the first year of the Gathering of Tribes will be presenting on the oral history project that we're working on. So anybody who can come and make it down, come say hi to us. Well, all four of us. I mean, Sergio will be there too. I'll be at the booth and around. So if you want to talk or say hello or, want to join us one day on this podcast, just let us know. And we'll be grateful to have you. So.
So that's the 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think. March 4th, 5th, and 6th.
5th, 6th, and 7th. Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay, 5th, 6th, and 7th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're presenting 5 on the 6th and the 7th. So.
Okay.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So today we're going to talk about peacemaking. We have a clip that we're going to play from Elder Gary Stevenson. Brown, do you want to pull that up there? And I'll go ahead and play it.
Peacemaking demands action. What might that be for each of us starting tomorrow? Would you consider a 1-week, 3-step peacemaker plan? 1, a contention-free home zone. When contention starts, pause and reboot with kind words and deeds. 2, digital bridge building. Before posting, replying, or commenting online, ask, will this build a bridge? If not, stop. Do not send. Instead, share goodness. Publish peace in the place of hate. Number 3, repair and reunite. Each family member could seek out a strained relationship in order to apologize, minister, repair, and reunite. Peacemaking is a Christ-like attribute. Peacemakers are sometimes labeled naive or weak from all sides. Yet to be a peacemaker is not to be weak, but to be strong in a way the world may not understand. We fulfill our divine role as children of a loving Heavenly Father as we strive to become peacemakers.
So I'll give you each an opportunity to talk about this, but I just want to say first, about a week or 2 before General Conference, when was this? Like October, I guess, last year. I had been feeling kind of a new call inside of me, that there was a work for me to do in peacemaking that was important. And I kind of thought, okay, that's awesome. And then I almost immediately after I was like, okay, I don't know how to do that. I guess I'm not very good at it. But President Nelson, before he died, he had talked about peacemaking multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Been on everyone's mind. But then like 2 weeks, like a week or 2 later, like Gary Gary Stevenson, Elder Stevenson, gave this talk, and it was like the first talk of General Conference. And I jokingly said this off before we started, but it was like he just took something and just threw it at me, and stabbed me in the heart.
Stabbed you in the heart.
Yeah,
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention. So that was like, it was kind of like the main talk it was like the main talk of General Conference that really, it was the one that I still keep thinking about, and I've watched it several times. And those 3 points I think are very, well, we can talk about them, I guess, one at a time even. But I think especially the second point really kind of was something that I'm like, yeah, that's something I can work on. But in general, I think it's something that I've been feeling more and more like I'm called to it, and there's a purpose in it, and with the gathering specifically. Cindy Brown, do you have thoughts at all?
Lots of thoughts.
Mhm.
I wasn't, I think this is a different, I was young. I think I was in kindergarten. I just went to a new school, and somebody was picking on somebody that I knew, and they were in older grade. And I got in a fight the first day of school, and I got a black eye because I was really upset that they were picking on this other person. This person was older, and I guess I was like, my aunt told me, we were so proud you came home with this black eye, and you were so proud to have this black eye because you're standing up for somebody. I'm like, wow, who gets a black eye the first day of school? Just standing up for somebody. Anyway, I don't know why I'm sharing that, but just sharing that. And then another thought, my adopted mother had some more adopted children that she looked after, like fostered. And there was one young man that she looked after who was very heated. And she said to him, so he used to get in fights all the time. She's like, we got to figure something out. She's like, next time you get in a fight, when you put your hands in your pocket, and when you count to 3, before you get angry. And then he got in trouble again. And my mom said, what happened? We had this plan. You put your hands in your pocket and count to 3. He's like, man, I put my hand in my pocket. I said 1, 2, 3, and he came back out, and then he would punch the person. Put his hands back in his pocket. Like, oh wow. So he was trying, and my mother was trying to teach him how to be peaceful. But anyway, I don't know why I'm sharing all these things, but it's like, when you think of, like, that's the physical, but when you think of when he talks about published peace, I feel like people punch people online all the time for having different opinion, for having, a different view. And it's almost like that, it's almost like it's this power behind the keyboard, right? Somebody might be having a bad day and decides to go online and take it out on somebody else. The thing about it is that people have to be really careful because you don't know what that person is going through on the other side of the screen, what they could be facing or what they faced that day, I mean, we're taking a chance just by doing a podcast and being on here. I mean, but at the same time, I don't want to read those comments or any negative comments, because first of all, I know that person who's writing them is obviously struggling with something. So I'm trying to understand that. So I don't want to take it personally because that's what that person is going through. So I think the best thing to do is, like, some people read them for entertainment or just to see a point of view, but I think it's, and I've done that in the past where I've looked, but I don't even bother anymore because I don't want it to impede on the work that we're trying to do. And, so And it's hard for people to do that because the first reaction you want to do is to be upset, right? So I like that he was talking about publish peace and share goodness.
Cindy, you were talking about how you like got in a fight, right? I think in some ways, verbal or emotional abuse, or even just fighting, can sometimes not. I mean, I don't want to minimize like physical, but like
Mhm.
sometimes it can be more painful or more hurtful. If I go back way into my past, like in like social media, and it's like a record of like everything that we ever said or done. I'm ashamed of some of the things that I've said. I don't even remember what they are, but I remember thinking, you know what, that is too much anger that I'm expressing, or too much pride or whatever. And I have worked at it. But we're talking, it sounds kind of like we're talking a little bit about the second item on that, where he talks about bridge building.
Yes.
What a great idea. What a really beautiful thing to think of, like, maybe you're even like, you know, that expression of like, where the other person might be wrong, like actually wrong, but like, are you going to build things up by tearing them down, or is there, um, can can um, can you be the path to, to another way? Um, and I'm glad we rewatched that, because I'm going to actually take it more to heart.
Mhm.
Kind of that idea of like, oh, if I'm online and I'm feeling angry about something, because that happens to me all the time. What do I do with that? Am I going to turn that anger into something that's tearing down, or can I find a way to, and even if I just need to walk away, that's fine too. But
Yeah,
uh,
to lift people up.
mhm.
It's just like that analogy when you talk to a plant. So you have one plant, I think I've heard this story of some youth, or where they had one plant they said mean things to, and then they had another plant where they talked nicely to, and that plant grew, but the other one didn't. It's like when you're talking, like how important it is that we talk to each other in a nice way. First of all, the world is hard. I mean, there's beauty to it, but there is difficulties, and sometimes every day can be difficult for some people, depending on what they're dealing with. And so it's more positive if we come and help, like you said, help uplift someone. We talk positive to someone, or what, like, in a way that can help lift them up so that they can keep going through this life, but and yeah, I think that's just one way that will help, that share goodness part. you know what do you think, Monk?
No, I really appreciate your guys' input, like your guys' words and stuff. And I join you guys. Something that I need to improve on myself. You know, and things. But I was actually because I pulled up President Russell Nelson's talk from 2023, and is right by just
Okay.
be like just two paragraphs.
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Because we were talking about social media earlier, right? It says, if a friend on social media has strong political or social views that violate everything you believe in, an angry, cutting retort by you will not help. Building bridges of understanding will require much more of you, but that is exactly what your friend needs. It says, contention drives away the spirit every time. Contention reinforces the false notion that confrontation is the way to resolve differences, but it never is. Contention is a choice. Peacemaking, peacemaking is a choice. You have your agency to choose contention or reconciliation. I urge you to choose to be a peacemaker now and always. So, I just, just really enjoy, the clip that we watched, the words you guys are sharing, and every time I think of the word peacemaker, I always divide the word up to kind of understand it more. And so that word always tells me to be at peace with my maker. And because in the Pearl of Great Price, it talks about Enoch, and it says that he built a city of peace. But when we read his story, he was like going around offending everybody, you know. And so the question, is for me was, how can he build a city of peace when he's like going around offending everyone? But then I realized that Enoch walked with God and that he was at peace with his maker. You know what I mean? Even if it meant being at odds with the world, he was still at peace with his maker, and making sure that that relationship was close and good. And, but that's just, a thought that comes to my mind when I think of the word peacemaker, is that I just want to make sure that I'm okay with my Father in heaven, because I know like if I'm at peace with him, then everything else will fall into place, like being at peace with others and things like that. But it starts there for me with the main guy. Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, that's so interesting what you're talking about, because I thought about that, but not in terms of the peace with Enoch. Because yeah, like you're saying, it says in there that men were like, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's like all were offended
Mm-hmm.
by what he said. Um, to me, that makes me think, well, more about like their hearts, right? Rather than maybe what he was saying was amazing. I don't know. I wasn't there. But yeah, that's really interesting.
But whatever it was, like it didn't stop him from keeping that close relationship with God. Like that was his number one priority, was to be at peace with God. So much so that God took him up.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a pretty powerful witness.
wow.
Be,
Yeah.
be taken up like that. That's special.
What do you guys think of the idea that, like, I was just looking at the scripture, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." That's from the Sermon on the Mount.
That's what we should be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how you identify them. But I think, like Brown said, like Enoch had to have been really strong and not like he believed in God more than like he did the Lord's work and not feared man and did what the Lord asked him. That takes a lot of strength, But like he was at peace with God, so he had God on his side, so he wasn't afraid of the world or man. But
That's really
I think
interesting.
it is.
Sorry,
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
I was just saying, I feel like I'm learning something right now. Basically, like the maybe um, maybe you'll be called to do something that you might even, like you feel called within,
Mhm.
right? Um, and maybe it won't feel like peacemaking, but you're you're supposed to do it. I don't know. That's an interesting dilemma.
Can we bring up that scripture, Enoch?
Yeah. I mean,
I
why don't you
seem
guys
to
talk for a little
want me to.
bit?
Well, while we're looking at up though, like in the scriptures it talks about like when like sometimes like Nephi or the prophets and stuff when they would speak to the people and stuff, the people took their words to be offensive and hard. You know what I mean? They
That's
took
true.
it to be hard, and it wasn't the fact that they were going around like belittling people and calling them names and stuff like that, but just the message itself probably pierced them to the center. Maybe sometimes if somebody's bringing something up that needs change or repenting, and you're the individual that actually did whatever it is that they're talking about, people can, feel a certain way, like, why are you talking about me?
Mhm.
Why are you looking at me when we talk? You know
Why
what I
do
mean?
you?
Things like,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
true.
what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say something about me? Things like that. But they
It's hard to
never,
look at ourselves, right? Right,
yeah,
Brad?
but
It's hard to,
mm,
but sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You're saying that it's hard to look at ourselves.
Well, like it's hard to look at our weaknesses and to be like, yeah, this is my weakness. This is my, or this is, I'm making a mistake and this is wrong. I need to correct it. Right. It's not easy, but I mean, there's a lot of things I need to work on. And like when you just said earlier, you felt like a javelin was hitting your heart. Like I need to wake up. I need to change. I need to change. Just basically, we can do better, basically. And the Lord is trying to tell us how. And sometimes it's like it hits your ego. Like, oh, wait a minute. What, me? No. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly that. Yeah. Um,
Did you find it?
yeah, I've got it up right now. If you want to share my screen.
Okay, yeah. Let me pull it real
I'm
quick.
gonna share it because I think there's some interesting stuff around it. Because when he's called, right? So he's like Enoch heard these words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord and spake, why is it that I have found favor? I'm but a lad, and all the people hate me. For I'm slow of speech, wherefore am I thy servant? And the Lord said unto Enoch, go forth and do as I have commanded thee, and no man shall pierce thee. Open thy mouth, and it shall be filled, and I will give thee utterance. Right. And then later on it says, and it came to pass that Enoch went forth in the land among the people, standing upon the hills and the high places, and cried with a loud voice. I would love to hear that. Or maybe I'd be afraid, actually. Testifying against their works, and all men were offended because of him. Maybe I would be offended. I'm not ready. But
Yeah, so that was when I mentioned and was referencing Enoch. This was the passage that I was talking about, where I was reading and I was like, man, Enoch actually was known for the city of Zion. People were one heart, one mind. Everyone saw eye to
Mhm.
eye, and there was no poor among them, and peace. But then we read here that all men, it says, and all men were offended because of him, you know? And then I realized that, oh, he's peace with his maker because God took him
Mhm.
up. Yeah. You know, like no matter what the world was, it's like I said, be at peace with God. And even if the whole world's against you, because I feel that, because I know that it's a lot better to be at peace with our maker and, than to be at peace with the world and offended by the maker, you know? So, anyways. That's what I was. But thanks for bringing that up so that we can read through it.
Yeah.
Is that enough, Cindy? Do you want me to keep anything else up before I take it down, or?
No, that's great. That's good.
Okay.
That's it's interesting to read it, but it's be another thing to do it. That's
Yeah.
because the world would just attack you.
So one of the other points that Gary had was that Elder Stevenson had was about having a contention-free home zone, and he said to pause and reboot with kindness, which is interesting because I think sometimes I think, oh, I'm a pretty good peacemaker at home, but actually there are rough corners that I can work on that are sometimes actually pretty rough. Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Like pause and reboot. Like he says, when contention starts. So it's like instead of like down the road, when you're like, because we all, we're human, and maybe I'm mad about something, or maybe I feel misunderstood, or I'm like, repeating myself 5 times or whatever, like whatever the thing is. Instead of when it, like when contention starts, pause. I know that's I will say that has been one of the most powerful mechanisms for me, is to actually just pause. To just keep my
Not
mouth
react.
Yeah.
Not react. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's going on? Like when you pause at that moment, what are the things that are like? What's your process? What's going on?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Right? Because then you're like, it's an internal thing. You have to internalize.
Yeah, because if we just say, "Oh, pause the anger," and then later on, I'm going to unpause it in anger. You know what I mean? Let the anger go. You know what I mean? So like when you pause on the anger, or the contention, what is that? Yeah, what's that like right there?
Working through, sometimes trying to figure out what's going on. Sometimes trying to just even, I mean, I think when you're having those kind of situations, it's often like maybe a feeling of like right and wrong, but what you need to do is think more about the relationship and how that, at least for me, like what, because maybe I'm in my head a lot, and instead I need to be in my heart. I know that's probably one of my weaknesses, being in my head a lot. So he says reboot with kindness. Yeah, that's like I don't know, like that feels like, it feels like what you do, how you treat yourself, honestly. I know that might sound like how you treat others, but how you're treating yourself. You start there and then turn that outward.
Yeah. I think having peace in the home is well, I think peace like within yourself, like Brown said, you have to be peace with God, like within yourself. I think but we're still in human form, so we have moments of weakness, but it could be like a trigger, could be, something that triggers you, could be you're tired, could be you're hangry. Is that what they say? You're hangry. Could be, hormonal, could be, emotional, whatever. Or, you know, but coming back to being one, like within yourself, like you're saying, you need to look to your heart. I think in pausing and like you said, you were thinking about them and your relationship and who this person is in your life, right? Your family member. And how do you want them to feel, you know? And so I feel like that's the one place that the adversary is really good at trying to get into is your home. I mean, like when you come home, it should be your place of peace. You know, you're out in the world, you're facing all the things that you have to face on a daily basis. And you come home through your door, you should have like that place where it's like your peace, where where the spirit lives. But because there's so many members of one home sometimes and they all go through their thing and they come back, I think it's like reboot would be prayer, you know, spending time with one another, all those things that can kind of help you reboot as a family. And thinking of them. And yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Cindy.
Like one thing that something that comes to me when we talk about these things, and hopefully I can articulate this without being confusing, but so like Zion talks about like one heart, one mind, heart and mind, right? And then I, when you say terms like, you know, when I refer to my heart, right, and where I refer to my mind, what I mean by those things myself is my heart is feeling, and my mind is thought, you know. And as I read the scriptures and stuff, that's what the scriptures talk to me about the importance of thoughts and feelings. And when I read, in the New Testament, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit, those are all feelings. And peacemaking, can also be grouped up in there too.
Mm.
And so God's like, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of save this space for him to operate and speak to me. And so I come in here, and for me, what that means is my feelings, how I feel in here, the fruits of the spirit, like love, joy, and stuff. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
he says, I don't look like other people. I look at your heart. So that tells me that this area right here is Grand Central Station. There's a war going on here every single day, And it doesn't take for like physical encounters for me to be tested on peacemaking. Peacemaking is happening in my mind and in my
Mm-hmm.
heart, even
Yeah.
if I'm home alone,
Mm-hmm.
and God's looking at and watching me this whole time, like while I'm by myself, thinking thoughts, having feelings about whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
He's looking and he's considering and seeing how I'm dealing with these things in here, in my heart, like how I feel towards people. Do I love and care for them, or am I sitting back and judging them? Because thought and feeling isn't something tangible that you can buy at the store or something like that, it doesn't take away the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It actually enhances the importance of it because it's here. So everything that happens inside with thought and feelings and stuff is of the utmost importance. And it should never be looked at like, well, no one else can see what I'm feeling or thinking. So, it's like no big deal. Like I'm judging this person, I'm hating on them, but it's not a big deal because nobody knows. It's just me. I kept it to myself. But God's sitting there going, I'm looking right at your heart. I know how you feel. Every single step, second of the day, we are on the test. Our feelings and our thoughts are being tested. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the physical realm for these things to happen. It can happen in the privacy of your own home, or when you're driving home from work. The thoughts that you're thinking, the heart. So, with that being said, when I run into different situations and I go here, is because I'm trying to gauge the feeling. And the feeling is, should I be contentious or should I be loving? What's the feeling that I want out of all of this? Do I want to get along, or am I ready for the smoke? Am I ready to this fire, And so I consider here. And as I consider here and pray, then God can tell me, you know, don't do anything, you know. That feeling of love that you have in your heart that you chose, let your actions follow suit accordingly. You know, don't argue, say nice things, apologize, do things that emulate and bring that feeling out of love and peace. But it starts here, thoughts and feelings, right? Jesus is like, if you look at a woman and you lust after her, like he's talking about our thought, just the thought alone. So thought and feelings, even though they're not tangible, it doesn't take away the importance and the magnitude and the treasure that's there for me. Thank you.
I'm going to do a little Brady Bunch here. I'm gonna point at you both.
What's that?
And say, you guys both talked about, you guys both, we'll do that. You guys both talked about prayer, right? As prayer is like that kind of reboot. We were talking about reboot. And I feel like that's a way of connecting with that inner, like you were talking about, Brown. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, like stop and then assess the feeling. Like, how did that make me feel? And what kind of feeling do I want to carry, like, out of this thing? Like, am I ready for a fight? Am I really ready to take my feelings down that dark and long and, rough road of arguments and stuff? Like, am I really prepared for that? Do I have the energy? No, I don't. I just want love and peace. So, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I love you. I'm sorry. And so right when it calms down, then all of a sudden that feeling that you had is starting to work, work in the physical realm. Now there's peace. Everything's died down. No one's arguing. Perfect. That's exactly how I felt, you know?
Wow. You guys want to talk about number 3? He says, repair and reunite. Each family member could seek out a strained relationship in order to apologize, minister, repair, and reunite. I'll just say one thing about that. I'll just say one thing about that. The word repair. I've watched like a few Instagram videos where people talk about repair as like, and it's been really valuable to me, this idea that like, hey, if you feel like you've wronged somebody, or if you feel like in your own family, like if you like with my children, for example, if I do something that I'm like, maybe I wasn't the best parent, that repair is something that I can do at like, okay, like maybe it's been a long time. It's never too late to repair. It's also really good if you can do it like as soon as possible. But just the idea of like, hey, trying to rebuild, right? Like rebuild what maybe harm has been done, or because we all do it. We all at one point or another give somebody a black eye, or come home with a black eye. Sorry.
I came home with a black trying to help my friend.
That's why you said it, Cindy, so that we would have something to refer. What do you think about that idea of like repair and reunite?
It's tough because if somebody is really hurtful to you, it can stay with you for, I've heard up to like, if it's really traumatizing, it can be there for like 2 years where every time, so if somebody does something to you that's really hurtful, so it's kind of like imprinted in your nervous system. So like if you stay away from that person, but if you hear their name or you see something, it brings back that trigger again, right? Because you come back to that moment when they first hurt you. It's hard. And someone did that to me and was very hurtful. But I still love that person. You know, I think I've come to the point now where I can still love them, and I forgive them already, even if they didn't apologize, and just move forward and wish the best with them. I might not always be best friends with them after, you know, but if they showed up at my door and needed help with something, I would help them instantly. So it's I'm not saying it's easy. It's a work in progress. But yeah, it's just doing it with love. Repair, like the repair, I think, is forgiving, right? Because that not only helps like your blessing, giving them a blessing, but you get a blessing in return, you know, when you forgive someone. It's like a gift, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about like how when you said like can hurt for years. I mean, there's some trauma that it can be generational, right? And and I think that's part of the work we're doing here, right? Is that peacemaking. I've also discovered recently, and Cindy knows this, that something else that I've been felt called to for a long time has been healing. And there's more to that, but that, right, like sometimes you can't always control circumstances, or you can't control what has happened to you know, I'll just say it, like Native communities, for example, right? Or you know, like what your brother did, or what your sister, your father, your mother, right? And so there is that, and sometimes I take this very seriously. You know, I want to make that sometimes you actually have to like remove yourself from entirely from a situation if possible. Yeah, that is my prayer, right? That is my prayer, that I can in some small way help repair, just in some small way, my part.
I think it's good. Like, we both, you know, there's a lot of healing that has to go on all over in a lot of communities, in order for us to move forward. And I think I like that, building bridges, right? Well, we build a bridge, we have to meet each other in the middle. You build on one side, I build the other, we meet in the middle. And that, you know, that's repairing relationships and then reuniting, and that'll make us strong as a people, as a community, as a family, as a husband and wife relationship, our friend, sister, family, mother, you know, mother, daughter, father, son kind of thing. If we can always keep that bridge in mind, of where we want to be, I think, and make that effort. I think peacemaking, like, yeah, you have to be at peace with your maker and peace within yourself. Then you'll automatically be at peace with people, even if they're not so nice to you. But if we can all work on it.
How do you we can maybe end soon, but there's something specific in my life where I'm like wrestling with somebody specific, where I don't always feel like the peacemaking that needs to come from me is actually not going to be reciprocated the way I want it to be. And how do we deal with that kind of? I think we've already been talking about it, but it's and nobody even necessarily these can be really hard things, so nobody necessarily even has to have an answer, but I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that.
Well, I think with with our agency, that it's the things that we can control. You can't really control what other people are gonna do. You don't know if you're gonna go to the store one day and somebody's just gonna come up to you and dump a whole gallon of milk on you. I'm just coming up with just a random thing, right? Like you don't know.
Good one.
Right? You don't know. And but what you do know is you have your thoughts and you have your feelings. And those are things that you can't control. And when I think about that, I'm just reminded that God has given us a very special stewardship, with agency and everything, to be able to make these kind of decisions and to be able to decide and to be able to tap into those feelings and those thoughts. One of the things when it comes to Peacemaker that I've also thought about is, I ask myself, like, how can I want to go live and return back to my Father in heaven and live peacefully with him if I can't even live peacefully with, his other children? And so, I have to keep that in mind, that if I want to return to live peacefully with him, then I have to be peaceful with others, because those are like the two greatest commandments. It's to love God and love others. You know what I mean? And so it's just, I just want to live peacefully, and I have to show it. You know what I mean, as well. I can't just want it, but then not show it. That wouldn't make sense at all.
Maybe you go buy them a gallon of milk.
That was the most random example, but it was the only one that I could think of on the spot. You know what I mean? I don't even know how my mind had to go that far to get their thoughts, right? If my thoughts went to like aisle like 9, with the milk and stuff. But yeah, those are just some of the things that come to my mind as well. Is if I want to live peacefully with with our Father in heaven, with my Creator, then I have to live peacefully with my brothers and sisters. That way, God can look and say, yeah, that's what I taught you guys. Go and act and behave like I taught you guys some sense. Go represent our family name good.
Yeah, go represent me good.
Yeah, go represent our family. So when we go out there and do good, they're like, man, that's so and so. That's kind of like a family.
Be the children of God.
Yeah, that's the family that person goes to, because they behave so nicely and they're so respectful and they're peacemakers. And the same can be said for the children of God. Like, hey, that's God's child right there, because
he'll recognize us, right, when he comes.
I don't know you because you're my children. You guys,
that's cool.
Act exactly like I taught you guys. You guys aren't out there living lawless and reckless. Lawless meaning like, God's laws, like love him and love others, stuff like that. Yeah.
Love
like
others.
You guys are, what's that?
I said, love others and don't judge them. That's not our place. We're supposed to love them. and serve them.
Amen. That's another thing that to think about as well too is justice and mercy, right? Because God's like He's the judge, so He got justice covered.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why God is the judge and we're not is because when it comes to thoughts and feelings, we can't see the darkest rooms and hallways of the deepest,
Yeah.
corners of someone's thoughts and feelings, but He can. Like, I don't know the thoughts and feelings that Robert's feeling or you, Cindy,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even our own hearts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't see in there because I can only see what's on the outside and then the feeling I get from what you're putting out
Yeah.
and things like that. So somebody could be, oh yeah, we're all good, but inside their heart might be different, and I can't see that, but God can, and
You
so
know,
yeah, He's able to judge us accordingly and fairly because He can see all these things. But what He does tell me to do as a child, is to do the mercy side. Don't worry about justice.
Amen.
Yeah, I
Yes.
got that taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
You have mercy. You
Mercy.
love, forgive. You are on mercy. But me, justice, I'll handle that.
I've never heard that put so well. Thank you.
What's that?
Mercy.
Just why the justice, why He's in charge of that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, that He can see like what's going on in
He
here and everything.
He knows it and we don't.
Yeah.
We haven't got the
And
fog list. Yeah.
yeah, that's
You
why
know.
we can't judge somebody by, we can't. It's mercy too for those that are treating us bad. I know that sounds weird, but we can't see what's going on in their heart or what's going on, but we have to, we put that judgment aside. If we did that and just help people, how different this world would be. In all aspects of everything with regards to everybody, don't, because when we always when we judge someone, we have, like, what's that Mother Teresa said, we have no time to love them. We're letting this get in the way of the heart. But if we can create a community where, like Brown said, that's God's job to judge.
Sergio just he came on a little late, but he was telling us about something that he just read about peacemaking with President Nelson. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, I'm happy that as they say, it's better late than never, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Right?
Yes.
So yeah, and it's great that you guys were talking about peacemakers and how important for us is to achieve that in our lives. As President Nelson in his book, What I Have Learned in My 100 Years of Existence, he was not just explaining, but admonishing us the importance of being peacemakers. And he said, number one thing, he said, the Savior himself has promised us to give us a peace that the world cannot give us. And as his disciples and followers of his doctrine, it is important that we also can be established peace in the life of our fellow men as the world cannot give. Therefore, because we are his disciples, Christ's disciples, we can have the ability to create that environment of peace and inner peace in our lives, in our hearts and minds, and in the lives, hearts, and minds of the others. And he said that this only can be achieved, number one, as we understand our responsibility to be true disciples of Christ and maintain ourselves in the covenant path. And he said, Christ himself always was promoter of peace, and he was also admonishing the Nephites that if we have the spirit of contention, we are not his. Therefore, President Nelson said that in order we could be able to be peacemakers, we need to follow three principles. Number one, avoid contention as much as we can, remembering that if we have the spirit of contention, we are not Christ and we're not following his doctrine. Second, avoid arguments and disputes and contradictions. And he said that it is important for us to understand that each of us has different understandings, different perspectives of things of this life, and sometimes of things of the eternity. But that doesn't mean that either them or us are incorrect. As we unify our thoughts and our feelings, we can understand that each of us are different, and with that difference we also can learn to be tolerant, and therefore we can establish peace. And he was also uh, making us understand that in his life he has been able to have encounter with many people with different philosophies, different beliefs, and different political associations. And he said the only way that I have been able to have harmonious relationship with them is to understand that each of us and also them have their differences. And I'm not here to contend or to argue or to let them know that because I administered the truth through the gospel of Jesus Christ, I'm correct and they are wrong. So he said, so avoid any type of disputations with your fellow men. And the third step that he provides us for us to follow and be able to establish peace and therefore be peacemakers. And he said, understand that all of us are children of God. And I was so really impressed when he said, avoid labels. He said, usually in our lives, we always come with labels that we give to people. So
Mhm.
don't allow nobody to have different levels. Oh, because he is from this political association, he believes this, or because he belongs to this church or this faith, they believe into these things that are not my beliefs. He said, no levels. The only thing that we need to be able to know, and the only level that nobody can change in ourselves and in the lives of the others, is the fact that they are children of God and they have a divine potential to increase, to develop, and to achieve his divine destiny. And I think that that was really, really great for me because I was able to understand that this is my mission in life. See my fellow men, not with any level, racial, political association, religious beliefs, but what they are. The essence that they have is that they are children of God. And it's my best desire and my prayer that not just us in this podcast, but everybody that can have the opportunity to listen to us, to see our fellow men as children of our Father in heaven and with the potential they have to achieve their divine destiny. In terms of that, we are responsible for them to achieve it.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. You know,
Beautiful.
when I think of a peacemaker, I think of the adversary is always trying to draw a line to divide all of us. Doesn't matter what, politically, family, everything, anything and everything to make us different. And like you
Yes,
said,
and
we can be different, but we can still respect one another, you know?
yeah, something that I also really, really touched my heart was that he said the greatest things that we can build come to happen in our home. And then he added, but let me tell you something. The greatest spirit of contention also can happen in the walls of our home. And when that happens constantly,